back again. It is Atlanta Discuss. Yes, we're back every Friday. We always come to you with a topic, that affects the world, that affects mankind. Like we always say, good day to all the people in the seven continents of the world: Antarctica, Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, South America, continent of Australia. We appreciate you always. You're always watching us. We thank you for your loyalty, your subscription level. We always love to up it, increase it. So we look forward to more subscribers. So today we're going to talk about the country in Europe. We're talking about Europe generally. I know we've always spoken about Nigeria, Africa, and all that, but there's no way what we're going to talk about will not still come back and affect Africa, because the elections in different parts of the world this year, 2024. Strategic elections. We have election in the United States. We have election in Ghana. We have in the UK that just been concluded. We have runoff coming in France, and a lot of this election will determine what the future holds for the world, So the war going on in Ukraine that's been supported by, governments in Europe. Well, if those government changes, if the far right take over in so many parts of the world, they probably will not favor the war in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. The world is no more a unipolar, now we have different new forces. You have China coming in, we have the BRICS nation and all that. So we're going to look at the election in France. That's why the topic for today is the Eurozone. Yeah, Eurozone implication, how the French election result will affect the Eurozone and European economy. So we have one of our very, very special guests. She's always been with us. She's been on Atlanta Discuss so many times. She's been a councillor in the UK. She was a former member of the Labour Party. Now she's conservative. So that's why she's here, because she lives in the UK. She's a politician. She's also an administrator. So she has fantastic understanding on all the issues we want to discuss. And today, how we have Siju Adeoye. Siju, welcome to Atlanta Discuss.
Thank you so much for having me again. Good evening.
All right. Thank you, fantastic. So, the recent election in France had Marine Le Pen's far right, they are ahead. I know there's going to be a second round, but we need to know what this implies for the world. The UK election also has been won and lost, so we're going to talk about that and generally. So let me ask you this. Do you think Macron, was made a mistake by calling for the snap election, after what happened at the European Parliament? Do you think it was a mistake? And if you think it was a mistake, why? Over to you.
So when it comes to snap elections, or the public putting pressure on the prime minister or the president of a nation, you have to weigh out the pros and cons, whether or not it's time or the time is ripe to put on, to call for the snap election. Even as you know, in the UK, we had our snap election July the 4th. Nobody expected that July the 4th will happen. And we were still thinking in the United Kingdom that the election would be late winter, not quite at this time yet. So, and if we skip back to 2019, I believe, where David Cameron, the prime minister of our time then, called a referendum, he never thought it would backfire. And he never thought it would result in that he himself will be leaving office. So it's a gamble, so to speak, when, a leader of a country feels the pressure and goes ahead and make that call for a snap election. So it's neither here or there. You hope it will be in your favor, but sometimes it's not always in your favor. And sometimes, it could be detrimental to your party, where, perhaps you will not even get back into government, or it could rule in your favor. So those things, you have to weigh the pros and cons and see. But then at the end of the day, it's about the people. And if the people are calling for it, but most times it's not the people. Sometimes it's the party members that are calling for it. Maybe they are dissatisfied with the leadership, so and they feel like, okay, they are hearing what the public is saying, and they think this is what the public are saying, they're the ears and and eyes of the public. This is what sometimes, people have, or party members rather, or people in the political party or with the prime minister. Sometimes, there are pressure groups, different groups that have their own agenda, and you have to weigh out, what is the best for the country and go with that decision, knowing that you have to live with it if it doesn't quite work out as planned. And, you hope that it's not a political suicide on your part.
Well, like I said earlier on, this is a recorded program, as you know. So so when we're recording it today, it's just about 24 hours away to the UK election. So by the time we'll release this episode, the election will have been won and lost. So I'm putting you on the spot. Who do you think is going to win the UK election?
Of course, it's the Conservative government. I have to vouch for my party. Why? In 2015, the polls, the pundits, they got it wrong. They said it was impossible. All the commentators were saying that it was impossible to move from a coalition government, into a majority government. They never thought it was possible. They never saw it coming. But guess what? We had better message, we had better data, we had better strategy. And, it was all about, getting Brexit done. We achieved that, and we hoped and continue that we would deliver it. So, yes, I think, yeah, the Conservative Party, I put my I put my money on it. I
Yeah,
don't
but
bet my.
you are ex-Labour, you're now in the Conservative Party. So let me ask you, why did you leave the Labour Party for the Conservative Party?
Um, Labour Party has drifted away from its core values, and I no longer align with the values that they hold. I mean, there were other factors at play, but the main one is that they have moved away from their core values. And I had to look, do soul searching, and it was more or less to do with how best can I serve the community that elected me, because it was more or less that I cannot be sitting, on the bench and not, be active. So it's just the way in which the local government the local government is set up, and, the ratio of it. And if I start that right now, we'll be here all night, So it was secondly, it was more or less to do with how can I best serve my community, and where can I serve that the voices of my community will be heard. So and it's how the local government are set up. And I just don't want to be sitting there collecting the taxpayers' money and not be effective for
Mm.
the people elected me to office. So yes,
Let,
that's
yeah, let's do
why.
some let's do some specifics. So when you say the Labour Party have drifted, can you be more specific in which areas they have drifted?
Okay, so if you look at even the immigration policy, for instance, Starmer hasn't got a clear plan, for immigration, and people are angry and upset that, immigration, what's the strategy for it? Well, you know what you will get with the Conservative Party, Yes, we're tightening up on immigration because it is necessary to tighten up
Mm.
on immigration. This is the topic most people don't want to hear or like to hear, but we're tightening up simply because we have to think about the safety of people. We have to stop the boats. And because so much lives are at risk, or so much life have been lost crossing, from not just at sea, crossing the Sahara Desert and crossing that Mediterranean Sea and trying to get into the UK. We have to stop the boat because it is a human rights response that we have to actually sit up and take very seriously. And people are not looking at the bigger picture, why, it is necessary to actually have a clear plan of how we're going to manage immigration, and I'm sure that's the reason for, the movement in France that you alluded to earlier on, because a lot of it is centered around immigration. A lot of it is centered around, people coming into the country, are they safe, and how are we managing this? So I think, it's not just one government, but I think all the governments that are thriving, that where people are trying to get to, really need to sit down and look at how we're going to manage immigration and how is it going to best serve the people that are trying to come into their country.
Okay, so let's talk about Britain and France strategically now. Because now that you mentioned immigration, most of these people are coming from Africa. I know a lot are Arabs, but even those Arabs are from North Africa. Now, we're talking premium colonialism now. France and Britain are at the top of it. The Commonwealth Group of Nations is a British franchise, countries that were colonized by Britain. And France, of course, they are stakeholder in West Africa, East Africa generally, and in recent times, there's been a lot of rebellion against the control of France, especially in West Africa, with the upsurge of coups. We've seen in Mali, we've seen in Niger, we've seen in Burkina Faso, and we know that they're really coming out to say, okay, look, let's control our resources. We know France exacted, even after independence, those independents were not wholly given. Those countries were not totally independent. We've read stories, tons and tons of stories of their foreign reserve being controlled by France and what have you. Nigeria, your own country, my own country, we know it was colonized by Britain. And we do see the footprint of Britain in everyday activities of Nigeria, the kind of leadership we get, how they support and all that. So my question on this is that while France and Britain do complain once in a while that there's corruption in Africa, Africa needs to do better and all that, they have also encouraged bad leadership in Africa. Most of the money that is being stolen in Africa, they're British and French banks. We know France control all this foreign reserve and all that. So don't you think it's a bit on the disrespectful side if any political party, for example, the conservative you're talking about, will say, okay, let's stop the influx of refugees, the influx of immigrants from Africa, when the resources of those countries themselves are being controlled, directly in some cases, indirectly in some cases by British forces, British government, pseudo proxy forces and what have you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think every country has the responsibility to look after their own, whatever that country is, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Britain, whether it's France. Every country has the responsibility to look after their own. Yes? Okay, so in a country like Britain, for instance, the resources are being stretched. In one of my daytime jobs that I was doing today, one of my clients was complaining about they haven't been able to get a GP appointment, that is general practitioner. We're talking about doctors, or you will call a doctor. They've not been able to get a doctor's appointment. And I thought to myself, I've not been able to have a GP appointment. I can't remember the last time I've been to a GP, the GP actually given me an appointment to have a medical checkup. So unless it's serious, extreme serious cases, you are not likely to be seen seen by a doctor. Why is that? Because the NHS, as it is, that the National Health Service in the United Kingdom is universal. It's free. If you are eligible for it, that is, if you have recourse to benefit, it is free. And that's why a lot of people are fighting for one of the reasons why people are fighting that UK is the destination, because, upon arrival, you will not be paying for healthcare at all. Although there have been arguments whether or not, we will take on the American style of healthcare system, whether or not healthcare will be privatized, so on and so forth. But because that's the only thing that we've been able to achieve, I think, over 70 years now, that is universal. So everybody's ultimate dreamland is the United Kingdom, but the resources are not enough and it's not going around. We don't have enough doctors. So you have on one hand brain drain, where all our medical doctors have been enticed by, countries like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, any country, in the Middle East like that. They know that they're going to be paid, highly paid. So you have that brain drain going on there. You have, but then on the other hand, you have healthcare tourism, where people are actually coming into the UK to benefit from the healthcare system. But who are the practitioners that are going to treat the people? So this is the challenge that we're having in the UK. So one of the challenges, anyway, that we're having in the UK, whereby the resources are not going around enough. We don't have enough doctors. And the younger generation, not many of our younger generation are interested in medicine or study medicine or go through 7, 8 years of just to qualify as a GP to start with, let alone going to now specialize. Maybe you want to be a surgeon, you want to be this or that. So we're not getting that patience from the younger generation. So there is a generational gap. There is issue of that. There's also what I alluded to earlier about the brain drain, happening. And then on the other hand, you now have the health, tourism, people coming into the United Kingdom, hoping that they will benefit from this free, healthcare. You can have, for instance, God forbid something should happen to me right now. If I was to go into surgery, it is free of charge. I wouldn't have to pay. But guess what? I have been paying indirectly, or should I say, through my national insurance number. You're putting in from your national insurance number. You're putting in from your tax. So your NI, your tax. If you have been working, for a significant number of years, we are putting back. So if you're employed in this country, you put back in that sense. But even if you're not working, even if you're on benefits, healthcare is free, and people know this, and they want to come, to the United Kingdom. So the issue is the resources enough? So ultimately, a country will have to look after its own first, put its own, prioritize its own first. That when we can manage our resources, then maybe we can invite people, or we have to put a stricter system in place that will now let us know who can come in, into the country and benefit, of all the, the benefits that we have in the country. So yes, I'm for that, because like I said, if everybody comes in, nothing will work. We have overcrowded schools. If I was to talk about education, we have overcrowded schools, in a particular place, people are not getting places for schools. Children have to stay at home. How are they going to be educated if there aren't any school places? So all these factors, and hence the reason why, the issue of Brexit happened, that, it was agitated
That was going to be
for.
my next question, actually, about Brexit. Yeah.
It was agitated for, and big time, overwhelmingly, although it was very divided, some parts of the country, didn't vote leave, and some voted leave. So I think it was 49 to 51%. So you can see how close that was, and it torn the country apart, literally. And we're still trying to recover from that, because we haven't fully recovered from that. Yes, we got Brexit done, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. So you have to look at those challenges and see, whether or not, can we allow more people to come in, at this time. So you have to weigh that, again, the pros and the cons, and then go forward from there. So yes, I think that's where I stand on the issue of immigration.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just give you a follow-up before I give my next question, because I don't think you answered the question I asked you, because the first question was that the African countries, and being specific, okay, let's say Nigeria, for example, a lot of money that has been stolen from Nigeria and UK banks. And UK is not saying no to those money. Those monies are being used to develop UK. So, I mean, Nigeria was colonized by the United Kingdom. But if the United Kingdom, for example, release Nigeria wholly as a country, okay, full independence, we say your leaders are corrupt, we're not going to receive any corrupt money, and they don't interfere in elections and all that. And Nigeria, because in Nigeria, as I know, everybody knows that our elections are not free and fair. Those are in authority today, are not the choice of people. So, and there are indicators, a lot of indicators that point to France and Nigeria, France and Britain influencing election all over Africa. Now Russia is in, and they are really, destroying the influence of France, especially in West Africa. So my question is, why is the Western world, being hypocritical,
Yeah, I wouldn't say hypocritical.
Because
And I
sorry,
actually,
let me just add one more. Just recently, I read even today that the UK has added about 300 more Nigerian doctors to its fleet of. I mean, fleet might be the wrong word, but to its number of doctors. So there are doctors in Nigeria actually living at the expense of Nigeria. Well, we know Nigerian government is not doing what it's supposed to do, but UK just added 300 Nigerian doctors. And those are educated people. So you cannot in turn accept those educated people, people that supposedly will add value to you, and yet at the same time driving away the downtrodden who are coming by sea, as refugees and what have you. When the bulk of the money that has been stolen by the elite is domiciled in those countries,
okay,
I know you're conservative now, so I'm asking you, yeah.
separate issues that you're trying to pull together, and it has to be separated altogether.
Okay, should.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of stolen money, etc., there are serious laws, tackling money laundering in this country. So anybody that is thinking that they can launder money, there have been heavy, laws, stopping that, and people being arrested, people have been extradited, you name it, to try and reduce, money laundering, corruption, all this stolen money that they want to keep in this country. That is being looked at, with heavy scrutiny. So there are laws that are really, really effective in tackling money laundering. So that's one side. So if we know that there are money being stolen, that will be dealt with. So that's on one side. On the other hand, you're talking about brain drain from Nigeria. Yes, the same way Nigeria is experiencing brain drain, we are also experiencing brain drain in the United Kingdom. We have our doctors, mass exodus of them going into countries like the Middle East that I mentioned earlier. So what are we going to do? If we're going to attract, or if we're going to say that we're going to go for immigration, we have to be strategic about it. Of course, Nigeria, what's stopping Nigeria from having a strategy in the way in which that they can stop the brain drain, or in the way they can have, the experts in Nigeria. What's stopping Nigeria from having it? So everybody has to be clever. Back to what I'm saying, looking after your own, prioritizing your own. So in that sense, you have to look at it like, okay, if we're going to allow immigration, we are going to go for high skills, people who are highly skilled in area, because this is what we need. We don't mind if you're going to add to the country. So in any relationship, even if it's friendship relationship, even if it's a work relationship, it's about how are you going to add value to the other person, So I don't blame the United Kingdom thinking, how is anybody coming into our country? How are they going to add value, to the country they're coming in? Nigeria still has to look into that. Any other country has to look into that, it's about value-based system. What value are you bringing? If we allow you in, are you going to add to us? So that's why I think those two examples, they are unparalleled, and every country has the right to fight for their own, fight for what they want. It's unfortunate that Nigeria still hasn't gotten to the place where, they are really concerned about the people, are really, really sitting down and strategize, how are we going to take our country forward? What's happening with the Nigerian health system? The NIHS that happened some time back. What's happening to that? Why is mortality rate still high? Why is infant death, still high? So it seems like our maternal health also. There are so many issues that, the healthcare system in Nigeria isn't tackling at all. So this is why, we are, today is not about Nigeria, but, we have, conversation
It's a
about
reference
Nigeria.
point. I've said it, we can refer to it. It's Atlanta Discuss, we're discussing.
Now and then. But these are the things that, the government that we say will represent us, they really need to sit down to start thinking about these things. And if it's not happening, are we making demand for it? Are we asking for it? There's no point in us saying this is not happening, that is not happening. Are we putting pressure on government to say that we want a healthcare system that works? No. So every country will have to look after its own, I'm afraid. And
Okay.
we can't go with the sentimental value that just because you took, it's your turn to give. No, no, no. It doesn't work like that. It's all about how you are going to add value to where you're going. In any relationship, working relationship, that is going to work. It's about how each other, the other person, or groups of people are going to add value to one another.
Interesting. So do you think Brexit was a good idea? I'm asking you for your own personal opinion now. Do you think Brexit was a good idea? I know it divided the country, I mean, but do you think it was a good idea with benefit of hindsight with the way things are going in the world now? Do you think the UK isolated itself?
I don't think UK isolated itself. UK came out of the EU because they want to have their own laws. Again, it's back to fighting for your own, fighting for the country. There are money that we pay just to be an EU member. That money that we're paying for membership can go towards, our system that we said is not working very well. We need to pour back into our NHS system. We need to pour back into our education system, so on and so forth. Health and social care is a big budget here in this country, for many reasons, that if we start to go into that, will take us the whole night, so we need to put money back. So in terms of our budget, we need to start considering, our own, sit down, have a reflection. Where are we spending too much money? And where do we need to cut back on? And coming out of Brexit, as coming out of EU, was a classic example of, we have to take a financial review of how we're spending money as a country and putting our money, in best places possible so that it is serving the people and that no one is actually left behind. So yes, it is a good decision at the end of the day.
Okay, so like we said, if Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party wins in France, I think they had just 33.15%. Macron's centrist party came third. I think they had just 20.76%. So there's an alliance of center-left, socialists, and Green Party. They had about 28.14. But I do know that at the moment, I know the voter turnout was about 60%, but I do know at the moment, Macron is rallying all the left and centrist parties together. And even though a lot of them are strange bedfellows, but they're all hell-bent on making sure the far right doesn't come into power. But in a scenario where in the parliamentary election, the far right gets into power, you understand? And in UK, we have Labour. I do think Labour will win. I know you don't agree with me, but by the time everybody's listening to this, the result will have been won and lost. So I do think that Labour will win. So we have Labour in UK and possibly a far right parliament, and even though Macron will still be president, he's centrist, What do you think that holds for the world? Because there is a very strong chance that Donald Trump too might also be the next president of the United States. So there's a lot of, stuff going around, which is going to affect world politics. Now Russia, is deep in Africa now. China is deep in Africa. They are creating a new power bloc through BRICS economically and what have you. Putin just came back from North Korea. The Ukraine war is the rallying point for the EU versus, the new power bloc and all that. So my question is, if Le Pen hold sway in France and possibly Labour in UK, which I think is going to be the outcome, and Trump wins in America, those are all the elections that we have coming up this year, So what does the future hold for the world? How does it affect the EU as a bloc, the European Union? How does it affect the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? I won't call it Eurozone this time because Britain is part of NATO and all that. Does the world go? Will there be? Will there be? Will it overflow across the world? Will there be a spread? That's what I was looking for. Will there be a spread of rightist party winning across the length and breadth of the European,
Uh,
continent and
I,
subcontinent.
I believe too much of something is not good. I'm talking in terms of extremists. So yeah, I don't believe in extremists of any sort. Whether it be left, whether it be right. I don't believe in it. And I am that sort of person that is eclectic in terms of what are political parties, what do they stand for? What can we borrow? What can we learn? What can we say it's good for the country? Not everything is good, but you can select as to what is good and so on and so forth. And the way in which, although the far right you will have in France may not necessarily be the far right you will have in the United Kingdom. I hope, we all know that. And what you will have, the far right you will have in the United Kingdom may not be what you will have in America. So it differs country to country. And
You're talking policies now, right? Policies.
Yeah. But yeah, ideologies, so the ideology differs country to country, and so you have to weigh it in its own merit. What does the Trump far right, what does it represent? Anarchy. We saw all the, shenanigans that, came out of his leadership when he ended, during the election, how that turned out to be. So the most important thing that we must bear in mind that every political party or every political ideology must hold is that how does that serve human right purpose? Very important. So I will not say this one is good and throw the other one away. But we have to have a balance, is what I'm saying. That, so the world needs balance. Of course, the world needs opposing views because we cannot have one way and, one-way traffic and everybody heads that way. We need opposing views. And that's the beauty of this country, for instance, where in the United Kingdom, that even if a particular government is in power, there are oppositions, and that's why it's not very nice or very good to have a two-horse race in an election. You need to have varying parties coming forward, standing for, for their policies and try to fight that. And in the hope that when you have good debates, healthy debates, you can say, okay, I can borrow that from that. I can borrow that from that conversation. I can borrow that from that debate to actually form an informed policy for the people where the people at the end of the day will be better off. So I'm hoping that there will be balance in the world. I'm hoping that we will not have extremists leaning onto one side of something that will be harmful and detrimental, to the people at the end of the day. My concern has always been and will always be, as a human rights activist that what I represent and my values is that in all of this, there has to be human rights upheld. We have to have it upheld in what we do. It has to be part and parcel, in everything that we do. It has to judge, when we're judging things, we have to think about that and not move towards extremists of any sort. That I will not advocate for, and that I will not support.
All right. So back to something you said earlier on. Let's go back to immigration again. Now, most people of African descent, when I said African descent, I'm talking sub-Saharan Africa right now. Those two say that, okay, well, while France and Britain might be indirectly pillaging their countries economically, right? And they're not receiving their people or treating them with a lot of respect. On the other hand, they are treating people of Arab descent with more respect and dignity. For example, people are saying even in the political sphere, yes, there are a lot of people like you in the UK political sphere, but the conclusion is that people that come from Arab countries, North Africa, Middle East, especially people from Syria that had a lot of, that have been war torn for some time, have been treated with more dignity in Germany, in France, and in Britain, compared to people of African descent. So what makes people of Arab descent more special than Africans? Why is it of economic value? Of course, politically today, we know that people from those parts of the world have more sway in the political sphere in Britain. The mayor of London, Coventry, Birmingham, well, I understand, I agree that a lot of Nigerians too in the UK, but they've not maybe embedded themselves. Maybe they need to do some more. I know we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I know about 5 that just became deputy mayor and mayor in some strategic places. But my question is, why are people of sub-Saharan African, people of Black descent, treated in more disparaging ways compared to those of Arabs across Europe? Even in Ukraine. Even in Ukraine, immigrants from Black people, that were living in Ukraine were not treated with respect in Poland, Hungary, and what have you, compared to people of Arab. So why is that?
Okay, so are you looking at the disparity in political sphere, or are you just looking in general? Is that the question?
I'm comparing. I've given 2 examples. Yeah, I think politically, I'm not saying the sub-Saharan Africans are not in the political space in those countries, but I think the Arabs do have a stronger sense of belonging. They are accommodated more. You understand? It's almost impossible for a Kuwaiti or for a Syrian to be refused visa going to any of those European countries, whereas people in Africa are charged an humongous amount of money and still denied. They come as refugees, they are still treated like the UK, as you know, has signed an agreement with Rwanda that everybody that comes for asylum as refugee will be repatriated back to Rwanda. UK will pay Rwanda to warehouse or keep those people, but they're not doing that to the Arabs. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. So it's 2 in 1, actually.
Yes, I know that our people will not like to hear this, but I'm going to call a spade a spade.
That's why it's Atlanta discuss. Just go for the jugular. I don't know. No point.
No holds bar. We say it exactly how it is. Yes,
the way it is. Yeah.
Say it exactly how it is. Where our people coming from global south, most especially, yeah. When they see an opportunity to get into the global north, I'm not accusing, and I'm not saying it's always the case, but we see majority. Statistics has shown that, they do abuse the system. Yes. So, yes, and the reason why system are being abused in such a way is because where they're coming from in their home country, they were used to abusing the system. So when they move from their home country to their host country, they struggle to detach themselves from the mentality, from the thinking, from the mindset that, things are not done that way. Things are done differently. And I'm sorry to say, we are seeing, in my line of work, we are seeing people not just from, sub-Saharan Africa or global south, even people from, European, you can say, parts of Europe. I'm not going to specify which parts of Europe that are migrating into the UK because they think UK is the better, it's this promised land of milk and honey. They have the wrong expectation. So, and I think I was discussing with somebody earlier on this afternoon, saying to them that how do you manage those expectations that people have, when they live in their home country, into their host country, expecting everything, to be done for them at the click of the finger, not actually studying the system in which they're going to. So this is the problem, that you're going into a new system, rather than, typing down, get to know what the system is about, what is on offer, how can I tap into it, how can I integrate myself, how can I be inclusive, without having to abuse it, where they will not say that they will put a stop to this group of people coming in. I'm not saying that's the case, but we have seen cases where, stop have been put to certain groups of people because they are not managing the system very well. So you have to look into that what are the issues? That the issues that you, or the way you will do things where you're coming from is not the way things are done where you're going, and you have to, the onus is on you to educate yourself. How does the system work in the country where I'm going? So even if I would choose to migrate to the United States of America today, the way we do things in the United Kingdom may not necessarily be the way, it is done in the USA, but I have to take my time to study the US, how the system works, how will I integrate myself, how am I going to be part, and part of that society in which I'm going in. So it doesn't even matter whether it's economically more vibrant where you're going or not going, it's a matter of where you're going. Do not abuse the system. They're more likely to be more welcoming and not have, a barrier or resentment towards you when in fact you come in, you pay your dues. There are people that don't even want to pay taxes, for instance. They
I
don't
agree
want
with
to pay,
you.
they don't want to, but then they want to exploit the system. It's not right, and it's like they go into a thing, they exploit it to the point where they have to introduce a new law to ban that thing. And let me not name names because I don't want to name and shame, certain instances where certain groups of people have gone into another country and they've actually abused the system, and they had to put new laws in place. Like, okay, let me just touch on it on surface. Giving birth in another country, you know the loopholes in that country, the law. You go there, you abuse that system, and you think that they're not going to retaliate or they're not going to put a stop to it. The Yoruba people will say, and I hope to translate it in English, Yoruba, pele pele, that kind of thing. That you have to be considerate is what I'm trying to say. If I'm translating it in English, you have to be considerate of where you're going. Don't abuse the system,
Yeah,
and
but
how are you going to put back into the system that you benefited from? There was a time, I think when you read one of my CV in one of the programs, that I volunteered for good 10 years. 10 years. How many of us, will volunteer for 10 years, doing
it's a
voluntary?
culture thing. It's a culture thing. Africans are not into the volunteer. Yeah. Yeah,
You
but you
know,
say you still can't take away the fact in America, for example, 7 out
Mhm,
of every 10 black doctors is a Nigerian. The most educated migrating bloc to the United States in Nigeria. Nigerians are the most educated migrating bloc to 2 or 3 of the 7 continents of the world. You understand? So my
mhm,
point really is, for example, Nigerians have a lot of assets. We are brilliant people. We know there's failure of leadership. We
mhm,
can't continue to blame Britain forever and ever. We know our leaders have plundered the country. We are
mhm.
extremely indebted, even though we have oil and a lot of resources that can make us. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to, be honest. You can't speak from both sides of your mouth. That's why I was attacking Britain and France. That
Mhm.
yes, yeah, they complain about, refugee issue, they complain about
So you,
corruption from African leaders, but they are directly indulging it. A fantastic example is Belgium and Congo. If you look
mhm,
at any map of Europe, you can't see Belgium. You have to strain your eyes to see Belgium. And Congo, what is former Zaire, it's a
mhm,
massive country in
mhm,
Africa, and Belgium colonized them. Belgium has
mhm,
plundered that country. It's common knowledge. They have plundered it. That country has never known peace since independence. From the
mhm.
time the Mubarak died, they brought in the almighty Mobutu Sese Seko Kuku Gbedu Azabanga, one of the worst dictators in the history of mankind. You understand? So if you look at it, colonialism has not really, really helped. Having
But
said it,
we have
having
to
said it,
come away from that. We
mm,
have to come from that because I hear that narrative a lot, and we
okay,
have to come away from that because when the
it's tough.
colon,
It's tough. You can't.
but the responsibility, the onus is on each country's
See,
leadership to look after its own. The
you know,
UK that you're talking about,
they're booby
guess
traps.
what? The,
Colonialism set up booby traps. I agree we have to move on, but there's some booby traps. Okay, let me give you another example. Rwanda and Burundi. In Rwanda, they are Hutus and Tutsis. In Burundi, they are Hutus and Tutsis. At independence, the colonialists gave the powers to the minorities in those countries. So it was just a matter of time for there to be a problem between the Hutus and Tutsis in both countries. You understand? Congo, Kinshasa, what you call Zaire, former Zaire, is too big to be a country. Nigeria, it's another fantastic example. You understand? The British gave power to the North. It's common knowledge. It can be backed historically. You understand? It's clear but why I think Africans might have heard, Sub-Saharan Africa might have heard, is when you look at countries like India. India has not lost focus of its culture, its value. They are multi-ethnic like Nigeria. They are multi-diverse. Now they're the most populous country in the world. There's never been a coup in India. Yeah. But those booby traps are there. They're there.
But the same way Nigeria was colonized by the British, same way Indians were colonized. True of course.
Absolutely. But, India has the edge. India had Mahatma Gandhi. They had fantastic founding fathers. Nigeria has too, but, corruption.
And that's the argument right there, precisely. So they're taking the onuses on themselves to build themselves and to build their country. That's what countries like Nigeria need to do. You can't keep blaming colonialism and this, that, bad leadership. We have to take on.
No, but in Ivory Coast, I'm reliably informed that the government house where the president lives, the land belongs to France. So Ivory Coast is actually paying France for rent of that land. That's more than colonialism. France clearly has not even.
So where is it from the people to take back their role? Where is the agency on each country?
They just did in Burkina Faso. They just did in Mali. They just did in Niger. And the colonialists are trying to destroy those governments. I'm sure for Russian support. The general, the young guy in Burkina Faso and Niger, they will be out by now.
Our power away. This is what the narrative that I don't subscribe to. Where I mean, it's like I don't want to use the word that I want to use to that
could help qualify it. Why not?
So I no puns intended or anything like that, no harm intended. But it's a matter of battered syndrome where you are constantly and I've been a survivor myself, so I know what it's like. So, and I know the pain and the agony of coming through a very hard time. Do you see what I'm saying? But then on a personal note, I had to realize that I have to stop giving my power away. I have to take that power back to emancipate myself. And it's not taking me a year it's taking me a long time, but I am intentional about taking my power back. So if we're looking at it on a grander scale, on a national scale, I was looking at it on an individual level, but if we were to look at it on a national scale, countries need to take their power back and look at how, because you're put in power, but you're only there to amass wealth for your immediate family, for yourselves, immediate family, and forget about the nation. Everybody's fight is, how am I going to get there to have piece of the national cake? When the national cake is supposed to be for everybody. So everybody's agenda, mostly, I hope, things are changing and there is a paradigm shift, with the new generation coming along, that, it's not about themselves, but it's about taking the power back, and how are you going to empower your people? So we need to start looking at that, stop the blame game, because we will be here forever. 60 years has passed, 70 years will soon come, century will still come, we will be celebrating independence. If care is not taken, we will still be rehearsing and blaming that, it's this country's fault that we're still where we are. No, we have to start looking inward. How are we going to get that power back for ourselves? How are we going to be intentional going forward to be a nation to be reckoned with?
All right.
and it's not one individual, it takes a collective effort.
Agree. I mean, I know a lot of sub-Saharan African countries have citizens that have fallen and have abdicated responsibility. But talking about taking power, are you following what's happening in Kenya?
No, you can brief me, please.
Yeah. So the youth are taking over. The government came up with this law that will increase. I think they wanted to take a loan from IMF, and IMF told the government to increase their taxes. So, for example, on diaspora remittance, the tax on it was 15%, now it's now 40% and all that. So taxes on wheat and a lot of staple stuff went, and the youth went to the streets. A lot of them have died. They've been on it since, I think, July 18th. There's been continuous. They're very intense about it. Now, the president has withdrawn that bill, which I think is a lot of power to the people, So now, so I'm saying this because based on what you said about people taking leadership by the own, I think the Kenyan youth have set the example. Hopefully, in Nigeria, the same. The Ghanaian youth have given their government an ultimatum already, and so on and so forth. So I do think that the Kenyans have set a fantastic example. They didn't give up even till today. They're like, okay, the president has to go and all that, and the major observation in the street of Nairobi, Mombasa, and the whole of Kenya is that politicians are not going around in sirens again. They're not going around in their heavy and expensive cars. They're driving quietly because the people have spoken, and they know they mean business, So I think in reference to your clarion call, I think the Kenya youth are pathetic, but I think it's overdue in Nigeria also. I mean, it's long overdue. Yeah, the very insensitive leadership in Nigeria, and it doesn't just have to do with this government. Past governments in Nigeria have been extremely insensitive. The military bastardized the country. The PDP had the power for 16 years. They were also insensitive. There was a time they said they were going to rule for 50 or 100 years. Not knowing that power is transient and all that. But the worst I've seen is the one we have now. The debt profile is over 1 trillion naira. This government, the Bola Tinubu government, have borrowed well over 20 trillion already, and we have nothing to show for it. That's what's abysmal. So, having said that, don't let's digress from where we are. Nigeria, we cannot talk on Atlanta Discuss without talking about Nigeria, the largest concentration of Black people. We can never ignore it. It's lagging behind, but you get there someday. And I think it's close. How, when it will happen, I don't know, but I think we're on the verge of something. So let me ask you this. Joe Biden recently, during the debate, was criticized for being non-presidential, too old, not fit. Democrats are actually agitated. He has been asked to step down, that they should come up with another candidate. Some have said Kamala Harris should do it. Some have said there's only Biden can beat Trump and all that. What do you think? Do you think Joe Biden should step down and allow somebody else to take the Democratic leadership in the forthcoming presidential election?
You see, I'm of the opinion of I think outside the box, so to speak. And it's should I say it's rather unfortunate that we have a way of how things work, and in some sense we tend to stick to the way things work. They say if it's not broken, why are you fixing it? So what I'm trying to do is that we've had a way that a certain age of a person is the right age to be in leadership of a country. And we have consistently seen that over, decades, periods of time that, certain age. I think the likes of Barack Obama or the guy in France, showed us otherwise, that, you can be young and you can lead a country. So this is where I'm going, that, I'm outside of the box. If you know what you're doing, if you have of course, life experience is important. Of course, track record is important. I don't underrate any of those. I'm always a big advocate of life experiences, track record, so on and so forth, because what are you going to draw from when the going gets tough, and of course you have to have good leadership, you have to have good people around you, so on and so forth. There's so many things that is the making of a leader. So when clearly that your health is telling on you, the good thing to do or the honorable thing to do is to step down. If you know that health wise, I'm not cut out for this job, the honorable thing to do is to step down. I give other people opportunity. The thing is, people are always hungry for power. They want to get there. Emilio come. And in Joe Biden's case as well, Emilio come, and I have to translate that in English for somebody that didn't understand what I was trying to say there. It was a slogan that the president, Bola Tinubu, made used during the election, that it was his turn, with petty dues, it's my turn kind of thing. I think we have to start coming away from that and really, really looking into, the caliber of people coming forward and giving people opportunity regardless of who you are, where you come from. Age shouldn't be a barrier as to, either you're young or old, it doesn't matter. Are you fit to do the job? That's what matters. So it's about the merit of the position you're going for. Will you deliver? If you can be young at 40 and have health issues, there are people who have health issues at 40, 30. So it's not even about the age or, because we don't want to be ageism, in this matter. So it's not about the age, so to speak. It's more or less, do you know your health history? Are you able to do the job? Not just on health grounds. There are other, making of a leadership. Can you deliver? And that's what, countries need to start looking at when it comes to people that they're putting forward and subsequently people who are who they're electing into power. But the sad part of it is the pool that people are being picked from, there isn't a lot to go with. That is the sad part. So we need to start looking at the pool of people coming forward and people actually taking this thing seriously. And I'm talking about Nigeria, for instance. They need to start taking it seriously. Where are the pool of people that can actually deliver from the country? There are intelligent people. You talked about intelligence just now. There are people who are capable of doing it, but where are they? Where are they? That's the question. Where are the elders in the room?
Where are the elders in the room? I like that. Yeah, Siju Adeoye, truth to power. Yeah. So let me just react to some of the things you say. I don't think Biden should step down. It's 81. I think there's a reason he's there. I think he's father of the nation. An 81-year-old man cannot have the same oratorial ability as a younger person. He's a mile feet slower. But I think there's a lot of grace that comes with his leadership. I think the Democratic Party is unduly panicking. I think he will beat Trump if they all unite behind him. Those panic were some of the things that worked against Hillary, and she lost with just 30,000 or 80,000 votes overall. So if the Democrats don't want Trump to win, they should just forget about what happened in that debate and unite behind him. Because if you bring in Kamala Harris now, there's going to be issues. The white women, the white men will vote for Biden, they will not vote for Kamala Harris. The percentage of black women, even though the black women are the strongest supporters.
Barack Obama was elected regardless of his race. So why would
I understand that. I understand, but Hillary, a white woman, had issues with white men. You should understand. So with demography is an issue. But the polls today show that Kamala is doing better than Trump. But whatever happens at the end of the day will be the decision of Joe Biden. If Joe Biden doesn't step down, nobody will replace him. Kamala has shown loyalty. And the other permutation, if you bring in Governor Gavin Newsom of California, is from the same state as Kamala. So I know I'm thinking like an African now, that I can two candidates come from the same state. I'm sure in America is not a problem. But I think they don't live by the let it wumble and fumble. Trump is not particularly a moralist, you understand, so you'll get by it. I think he's working Biden has been working really hard, so they should just give him cut him some slack, And I'll say to you again, Europe colonized Africa. It's not fair for Africa to still wallow and blame colonialism. but Europe should leave Africa, especially the resources, there's still plundering going on. It's true India, the Asians have handled it better, but that is what it is. So we're going to call it a wrap there. I'm sure we now know who the winner of the UK election is. I'm sure we Labour, because this is 24 hours before the election.
I say conservative. That's why I'm glued to them.
Okay. I'm sure when our viewers are watching it, they'll be laughing at, so who's right or wrong. I think with what Macron is doing, he's learned his lesson. The coalition of all the centrists and the leftists will not allow Le Pen win the second round of the elections. I think it would be good to stick our neck out for that. So the general implication is that the free world, yes, if they are under the wrong leadership, it will affect the world and all that, So, but even at that, the world needs leadership, and I think that America still has a strategic role to play. Contrary to what people say, I don't think it's an empire that is going to fall in the nearest future. America accommodates everybody. It's an idea, like Biden says it. You can be China is a monolith, Yeah, there might be a behemoth economically, but they don't have that spread, We are not going to start speaking Mandarin or something all of a sudden like that, or Cantonese or
all over the world. We could be
all
speaking
over.
Mandarin.
Yeah, there's some expansion, but even the almighty Russia, apart from the nuclear weapon, there's really nothing Russia is offering the world. You understand? So that's the truth. And we need freedom, we need democracy, and America is the major beacon of. Like my friend will say, I'm sure you will not like this. I have a friend that used to say, "Not so great Britain," Great Britain, and that, not so great Britain. That
Have you noticed that we've halved inflation, we're growing back the economy, yes, we're cutting waiting lists, so we are actually having tangible results that have something to show for it.
Britain will survive. It's a strong country. I mean, anybody that read about the Second World War will know that the British are resilient, small but mighty. But
yes,
the not so great. The not so great is coming from.
That's my problem. He hasn't got a clear plan. So I don't have that vote of confidence in him that he's the person that will take the country where it needs to be, But unlike, our prime minister, as we speak now, who will be the prime minister for the next, term, he's been able to halve the inflation. Kudos to him. He's been able to grow the economy back. Kudos to him. So those are track records that we're talking about, deliverable track records that, something to show for it. So hopefully, the next time we meet, we can have.
All right, hopefully. So it's a wrap there for our viewers and listeners all over the world. The implication of the French election, Macron called the snap election, maybe he panicked or not, but there's going to be a second round. And that second round, they're really coalescing very well. And based on the homework they've done so far, people that don't even like themselves are all working together just to make sure that the far right under Le Pen doesn't win. Le Pen, you all know, is very loyal to Putin. It's not in the interest of the free world to have a Le Pen run France. Not right now, not with the war in Ukraine and all that. But let's see. It's democracy. Anything can happen. But economically, nothing is really going to change. France has its obligations. They'll still want to hold territory in Africa. They still have obligations. There might be some issues with NATO, because if Trump wins in America, Le Pen wins in France, NATO is going to be in trouble. They might not, it will exist, but under what format and guys. So that's it. Siju, thank you for hitting our call. Thank you for being a consistent member of our team.
Always a pleasure. Great discussion.
All right, take care, guys. See you guys next week. God bless you all. Bye.